This is section 9.2, and now we are going to talk about angle relationships. This section, just like 9.1, is going to be one where we have a lot to write down, a lot to remember. So just make sure while you're doing your homework, well, you'll be in class anyway, but just make sure when you have your homework that you are keeping it next to you so you can refer back. The more you look back, the easier it will be to memorize all these different concepts. Okay, so the first one is an angle. So what an angle is, it is formed by two rays. Remember, a ray is a point that it has one end point, and then it goes on forever. So if we have two of these, that would be our angle. So how we draw it is we would have, let's say, point B. Then it goes on forever. Then let's say we have a point C and a point A. Okay, so now our notation would be angle ABC. Remember, when we use points, we use all capital letters. Or we could also call it by our vertex right here. And we could call it angle B. Okay, so those are our two options. We have adjacent angles as our next word, and it is when we have two angles. Okay, so we need to have two angles that share a vertex or a common point and a side, but no points in their interiors. Okay, so what that looks like drawn is this. If we have an M here, line that goes up, line that goes out, on forever, we have an L, we have an N, and we have a P. Okay, so they share a vertex, which is at point M. They also share a side right here, which is that middle one, that is our side, but no points in their interiors. Okay, so, and how we write that, our notation is we would say angle LMN and angle NMP are adjacent. So that's how we would write that. Angle LMN and NMP are adjacent angles because they share that one side and they share a point or a vertex. Okay, our next one is congruent angles. And they are two angles that measure exactly the same, have the same degree of measurement. So how we draw that is we could say this is X, and then we have angle. Okay, do they have to be exactly the same? No. So I better draw a different one. Okay, let's say it goes this way. And then we have angle Y. Okay, and how we show congruence is if we draw a line like this on both of them. Okay, if there's a line like that on both of them, that means that they are congruent. This little half circle in there means that they're congruent. So let's say there's one line, that means those two are congruent. Then let's say I have this point C, and I have this point D, remember capital letters, and then I could draw two lines, which means the ones that both have two lines, that those two are congruent. The ones that have one line are congruent, okay? So just however many, like little half circle, well, this isn't even a half circle, but just however many of those, that means that they are congruent. These ones have 1 and 1, so that means they're congruent, and these ones that both have 2 means that they are congruent. So our notation for this, or how we write our answer, is that angle AB, oops, sorry, I looked at the wrong spot on my notes. Our notation for that is that angle X is congruent, that's how we draw congruent, to angle Y. So we could over here say angle C is congruent to angle D. Okay, so that's how we draw that. And then we have our friend, the vertical angles. Now this is where we kind of start getting fun. This is where I really do enjoy these ones. Okay, so they are opposite angles. So what I mean by that is formed by two intersecting lines. So let's say we have two intersecting lines here. Okay, so they go on forever because they are lines. So we need to put our arrows at the end. We have angle 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so what intersect or vertical angles means is that the vertical angles are congruent, or the opposite ones. So if I look at this side and this side, I know that angle 1 and angle 3, not angle C, angle 3 are vertical angles, and angle, so now for this one we can put two lines and two lines because 2 and 4, angles 2 and angles 4 are vertical angles, and so they are congruent. So instead of an and in between these two, we can write our congruent signs, equal with the little squiggly line on top. So angle 1 and 3 are congruent because they're opposites, and angles 2 and 4 are congruent because they're opposites, or also known as vertical angles. Okay, then we have complementary. So we have to think. Complementary is 90. Supplementary is 180. That would be something I would get on your note card for the test, because it really will help you. I mean, there's not really a trick to remember complement 90, supplement 180. So what that would mean is if I said, let's say I wanted the complementary angle to an angle that is 30 degrees. So I would say that my complement, or my complementary angle, would be 60 degrees. So they just have to add up to equal 90. Okay, so same with this one. Let's say I had an angle of 120 degrees. The supplement would be 60 degrees. Okay, because 120 plus 60 equals 180 degrees. Same with 30 and 60 equals 90 degrees. Okay, so that is what we would do for complement 90, supplement 180. Okay, and again, this is going to have us find those. We have to find the complement and the supplement. So I'm going to just abbreviate complement and write COMP. And then I would just have to take my complement, which means 90 degrees, minus 25, and I would get 65. So my complement is 65 degrees. My supplement, or my sup, we can just call it a sup, I'd take 180 minus 25, be a 5, 7 minus 2 is a 5, so it would be 155 degrees. Okay, so there's my complement and my supplement. Then for 88, we do the same thing. 90 minus 88 would be my comp is 2 degrees. And 180 minus 88 is 17 minus 8 is 92. So our supplement equals 92 degrees. Make sure you, when you do this, you actually put complement is this, supplement is this. Because if you just put 2 degrees, 92 degrees, I'm not going to know which one. So our complement for this one, because it is over 90 degrees, we would just write none. And my supplement would be 60 degrees. Because 60 plus 120 equals 180. So here we have an example. It says find the measure of the missing angles. Now I have to draw in our little missing angles here. It's going to look something like this, and we know that this side is 30 degrees. That's a degree symbol there. Okay, so let's say 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I know that angle 2 equals 30 degrees because they are vertical angles. Okay, then can I figure out angle 1? Well, I can, because I know that a straight line equals 180 degrees. Okay, so how I know that is that if I have a right angle and another right angle, it makes a straight line. 90 plus 90 degrees equals 180 degrees. Okay, so these two angles are supplementary. I have 30 degrees and I need to find out what the rest of it is. I can know that angle 1 is 180 minus 30, or 150 degrees. Okay, because the whole line is 180 degrees. We can just remember that. A whole line is 180 degrees because a right angle plus a right angle equals 180. Okay, so if we know that, let me find a different color here. If I know that this angle is 150, then I know the opposite angle, or angle number 3, is also 150 because then we can write supplementary. If it asks you to prove why, it's because of supplementary angles. And angle 3 equals 150 degrees as well because of vertical angles. Okay, I'm not sure if it'll ask you to tell why, but if it does, this would be your definition. Because of vertical angles, because of supplementary angles, because of vertical angles. Okay, now we do have some more to add. Okay, a transversal. So it is a line that intersects two other lines in different points. So let's say I have a line here, a line here. Okay, these go on forever. Then we have our transversal. Okay, if this line was straight up and down, then it wouldn't be a transversal because it has to intersect those 2 points at different points. So it says, what is 1, 2, 3, 4, then we have 5, 6, 7, 8. So those are all of our angles we're talking about here. Okay, so here we have corresponding angles. And let me tell you about corresponding angles in Peach. Okay, so angle 1 and angle 5, those two are corresponding angles. So we would do angle 1 and angle 5. Okay, they are at the same spot, but they are on different lines. Okay, so 1 and 5 are corresponding. So if 1 and 5 are corresponding, then we also know that 2 here is a corresponding angle to 6. Okay, we also know that 4 corresponds with angle 8. Corresponding angles are congruent, that means they're the same. Okay, and then we also know that 3 corresponds with 7. Okay, so that's what corresponding angles are. If we have a transversal, then we can know that those angles are corresponding. Then we can also know that alternate interior angles are also corresponding. Let's pick red. And that's too close. Let's go orange. Okay, so what alternate interior angles are is says that 4 is the alternate interior angle to angle 6. And that those two are congruent. Okay, so they're alternate, that means they're opposite, but they're both interior angles. So angle 4 is congruent to angle 6. And then we would also know that angle 3 is congruent to angle 5. Okay, these are just ways to tell if something is congruent. We better write the congruent sign. Congruent, congruent. Congruent means the same degrees. Okay, so if I'm asking you to tell me why angle 4 and angle 6 are the same, you would say because of alternate interior angles. So those are the only ones that are congruent using alternate interior angles because they have to be angles that are on the inside of our transversal. Okay, so if the two lines are parallel, then corresponding and alternate interior angles are congruent. So yes, these two lines right here have to be parallel in order for this transversal corresponding alternate to work. Okie dokie, let's try an example. Find the measure of missing angles. So here we have parallel lines, okay? Then we have a transversal line. And I mean, this transversal line could be absolutely way more slanted than, it doesn't have to be straight up and down as long as those two lines are parallel and this transversal line hits them at different points. Okay, so if we know that this angle right here is 165 degrees, we need to find all the other angles. Okay, so let's name this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so angle 2, well, we'll do angle 1, angle 2, angle 3 equals, angle 4, angle 5, angle 6, angle 7. Okay, so we know angle 2 is 165 degrees because of vertical angles. Okay, so if we know that one's 165, we can use alternate interior angles to know that 5 is also 165 degrees. Okay, if we know 5 is 165, we know that 7 is also 165 degrees because of vertical angles. This is alternate interior angles. This is vertical angles. Okay, now we have to start using some of our supplementary to figure out the rest of them, because the rest of them are equal. Okay, so I know that this is a line right here from 165 and figuring out 1. So a line equals 180 degrees. So if I take 180, or use my supplementary angles, then and I subtract 165, I'd get a 10 there, I'd get a 5 there, a 15. Sorry. So we know that angle 1 is 15 degrees because of supplementary angles. So if 1 is 15, we know 3 is also 15 because of vertical angles. Sorry, they're opposite. And we know if 3 is 15, that 4 is also 15 degrees because of alternate interior angles, AIA. And if 4 is 15, we know 6 is 15 degrees because of vertical angles. Okay, so really on something that looks like this, where you have two parallel lines and a transversal line, there's going to be two different angles. Okay, but we just have to be able to figure out which ones are the same and why they're the same. Okay, After this section, there will be a quiz. I know these were long sections, you guys, so I will let you use your notes on the quiz to help you out with all these different terms and ideas. So if you need any help, please come in and ask, and I will see you later. Thanks for watching.